Over 680,000 Chinese nationals, many linked to illegal gold mining, swept into West Africa like a tide unannounced. Rivers choked with mercury, children coughing from dust, hills blown open for necklaces sold across the sea. But Ghana didn't bow. It stood. One country, one law, one voice rose in parliament and roared, "No more." So here's the question, brothers and sisters. If Ghana can say no, what about the rest of us? Stay with us, because this isn't just another story. It's the future our ancestors dreamed of. If that matters to you, hit subscribe, not for the video, but for the vision. In just 2 years, between 2018 and 2019, Ghana received over 680,000 visitors from one nation, China. Not tourists, not students, but men with machines, men with maps, men with a mission that didn't need to be declared to be dangerous. They didn't arrive with guns. They brought excavators. They didn't storm borders. They slipped through them, backed by silence, covered by corruption, and protected by the oldest weapon of empire, economic desperation. And so began a quiet invasion, not of bullets, but of bulldozers. And its target wasn't just land, it was legacy. They called it Gallumsey, short for gather them and sell. A local term once whispered in villages, now shouted across headlines. What started as small-scale, informal gold digging by locals ballooned into a full-blown industry. Over 1 million people scraping the earth, chasing gold dust. 1 million. That's nearly a third of Ghana's entire gold output, not managed by state engineers, not taxed for national benefit, not reinvested in schools, hospitals or roads, but leaking, pouring into foreign hands, unchecked, unregulated, and often illegal. But the damage didn't stop at economics. It poisoned the veins of the land itself. 60%, let that sink in, 60% of Ghana's water sources are now contaminated. Mercury, cyanide, heavy metals poured into the rivers like curses. Once life-giving streams now carry sickness. The River Pra, the Offin, the Ankobra. These names used to mean something. They meant life. Now they mean warnings. And if this doesn't change by 2030, Ghana may be forced to import clean water. A nation that once bathed in abundance may soon beg for what once ran freely. And no war was declared, no army invaded, no shots were fired. So let us ask, with the full weight of our history behind the question, how does a nation lose its rivers without a single shot being fired? We've seen invasions before. We've survived ships with chains, laws with loopholes, policies that dressed themselves as help but stripped us bare. We've seen front doors kicked down and churches burned. But this was something else. This was quiet, subtle, systemic, and some would say even more dangerous. Because when the enemy doesn't announce himself, when the theft comes dressed in business suits and stamped visas, when the gold in your soil vanishes, but the profits never pass through your hands, that's not just loss, that's erasure. And in Ghana, it didn't happen by accident, it happened by design. We'll dig deeper. We'll trace the laws, the loopholes, and the leaders who looked the other way. But for now, remember this. In 2 years, 680,000 came, and the rivers began to turn brown. For a long time, the law was written, but not enforced. The rules were clear, but the hands holding them trembled. But Ghana is no longer whispering. It is speaking, in the language of justice. Let's be clear, the Minerals and Mining Act of 2006 and its amendments in 2015 and 2019 are not suggestions. They are declarations. Declarations that foreign nationals are absolutely prohibited from engaging in small-scale mining, in any form, by any proxy, under any disguise. And it doesn't stop there. Section 99, Clause 3 of the law is unequivocal. Any foreigner caught engaging in illegal small-scale mining is to face 20 to 25 years in prison, fines in the millions, And, most significantly, no deportation until the full sentence is served. This isn't symbolic. This is a message carved into the stone of the Republic. You will not dig our graves with our own gold. For too long, foreign profiteers exploited Ghana's patience as weakness, its hospitality as naivety. But those days are over. Honorable Maka Mubarak, standing before the Ghanaian parliament, said it without flinch, without pause, without apology. Ghana's soil is not for auction. Let that echo. In every village where rivers run red, in every town where children cough mercury, and in every embassy where silence once passed for diplomacy. This isn't xenophobia, it's sovereignty. Let's compare, shall we? Every year, over 260 Ghanaian citizens are arrested in China, often for minor infractions, visa lapses, or overstays. And let's be real. No Chinese court offers leniency. No Chinese politician calls for dialogue. There are no cultural misunderstandings, only consequences. So why should Ghana, whose land feeds millions, whose minerals built empires abroad, be more forgiving with those who break its laws? This isn't about race, it's about respect, because law without teeth is poetry, and Ghana is done reciting. This is a new Ghana, one that has tasted the bitterness of polluted waters and decided never again. A Ghana that has watched its gold fuel cities it will never see and said, no more. A Ghana that sees in its soil not just minerals, but memory. The memory of ancestors buried in it, the memory of children yet to play on it, and the memory of a nation rising, not by mercy, but by mandate. So when the law speaks now, it does not murmur, it roars. And if anyone, foreign or familiar, believes they can still mine behind closed doors, buy silence with money, or twist laws with influence, they are mistaken. Because in this fight, the law is not the problem. The problem is whether we're bold enough to uphold it. By 2025, up to 30,000 Chinese nationals are believed to be operating illegally in Ghana's goldfields. 30,000. Let that number settle. Because this is not speculation, it's not fear-mongering. It's data, grim, stubborn, and undeniable. Back in 2013, over 4,500 foreign nationals were arrested and deported in a single wave of enforcement. Cameras rolled, statements were made, headlines blared, Ghana cracks down. But a decade later, the excavators are back. Louder, deeper, bolder. What happened? Between 2017 and 2018, the government launched Operation Vanguard, a military police task force dedicated to halting illegal mining. Over 1,000 illegal miners were arrested, and more than 3,000 pieces of equipment, excavators, water pumps, vehicles, were seized or destroyed. It was a show of force, a spark of hope, a declaration that Ghana's laws weren't just ink on paper. But today, the rivers still run poisoned. The forests still burn, and the gold still flows, just not to Ghana's coffers. So the question must be asked, and not whispered, but shouted, why is this still happening? How can tens of thousands of foreigners mine Ghana's land, flouting its laws, without facing justice? Who is protecting them? Because somewhere between the courtrooms and the clearings, between the parliament and the pits, justice has gone blind, not by accident, but by arrangement. Let's speak plainly. Justice isn't just about laws. It's about who the laws are allowed to touch. We've seen young Ghanaian boys thrown behind bars for petty theft, a loaf of bread, a mobile phone, but entire foreign mining operations can run for months, even years, before a single raid is launched. When they are caught, they disappear into bureaucratic fog, processing delays, missing documents, investigations ongoing. Meanwhile, machines keep digging, streams keep dying, and trust keeps eroding. So who benefits from the blindness? Some point to mid-level officials, local chiefs, district officers, immigration staff, whose silence can be bought cheaper than gold. Others whisper about bigger players, foreign embassies, investors, development partners, who apply pressure behind closed doors. asking Ghana to be reasonable. But how reasonable is it to poison your own people? How reasonable is it to trade rivers for favor, sovereignty for silence? Justice, in its purest form, must not blink, it must not tremble, and it must never discriminate. So let us ask, not just the government, not just the courts, but ourselves, do we believe justice should have one face for the foreigner and another for the child born beside the river they poisoned? If your answer is no, then say it with your spirit, say it with your voice. Say it in the comments below. If you believe Africa's justice should have one law, not one for us and one for them, say Amen in the comments below. Because law without fairness is a performance. And Ghana and Africa deserve more than theatre. They deserve truth, they deserve balance, and they deserve a justice that finally sees. In the villages of Ghana's gold regions, the true cost of illegal mining isn't just counted in ounces of gold. It's measured in breathless children and poisoned harvests. Mercury has seeped into the rivers. Children playing by the banks now suffer chronic coughs that doctors trace to chemical exposure. In once thriving farmlands, crops wilt. The soil, once fertile, is saturated with toxins that no rainfall can wash away. One explosion tells the story plainly. Near a schoolyard, an unlicensed mining operation triggered a blast that tore through a field where children played. No war, no enemy flag, just a crater and silence. These are not isolated incidents. They are the echo of a nation that waited too long to act. Ghana loses over $2 billion every year to illegal mining. This isn't due to a lack of resources. The gold is there. It's not for lack of knowledge. The law is clear. What's missing is resolve. A refusal to confront what's become politically inconvenient, financially entangled, and morally corrosive. And it forces us to reflect beyond Ghana. In the United States, black communities have long felt what it means to be unheard. When lead poisoned the water in Flint, the response came late. When the levees broke in New Orleans, aid came slow. When injustice appeared, recognition lagged. Always too little, too late. Now, in Ghana, we see echoes of that same neglect. Except this time, we are the ones hesitating. We know who's mining illegally. We know where the rivers are being turned into sewers. Yet in boardrooms and official circles, the language remains cautious, delicate, diplomatic. But how do you negotiate with devastation? This isn't just a matter of foreign policy. It's a test of principle. A people who once endured the cotton fields of oppression must decide. Will we allow our gold fields to disappear under the same quiet betrayal? Because what's at stake is not just land, it's legacy. The longer this continues, the deeper the damage. Not only to the environment, but to the soul of a country that once dreamed of standing tall, unaided, and unbought. Each gallon of poisoned water, each lost harvest, each unmarked grave near an abandoned pit, they remind us that silence has never protected us. Not in Mississippi, not in Accra. So we must ask ourselves, what does it mean to protect our own? To speak when it's unpopular, to act when delay is easier, to say with clarity and conviction, this land is not for sale. Because if we don't, who will? We were the survivors of cotton fields. Now will we watch gold fields vanish? No one is asking Ghana to close its doors to the world. But every nation has the right, and the responsibility, to guard what its ancestors died to preserve. Land, water, gold. These are not just resources. They are inheritances. Respecting borders does not mean rejecting people, but it does mean drawing lines when those who come to your table begin to steal from your plate. What's happening in Ghana is not unique. Across Africa, similar battles rage, often unspoken, often ignored. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, cobalt is pulled from the earth by children, while foreign corporations profit. Nigeria faces illegal oil extraction that pollutes rivers and corrupts institutions. In Zambia and Sierra Leone, mining towns rise overnight and collapse just as quickly, leaving behind holes, chemicals, and broken promises. This is not an isolated fire, it's a continental blaze. But fires can purify as well as destroy. So where do we begin? First, Ghana must strengthen what it already has. The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources must be more than a regulatory body. It must be an empowered force, backed by funding, transparency, and political courage. Its officers must be equipped, not just with tools, but with protection from the pressures that come when power and profit collide. Second, education must carry the message forward. In every school, every youth program, every community forum, the phrase must be taught, repeated, and believed. Our land is not for sale. This isn't just a slogan. It's a defense strategy, a moral compass, a reminder that progress built on compromise is rarely progress at all. And finally, trust must be restored. In law, in leadership, in justice. People need to see that consequences are not reserved for the poor, the local, or the unconnected. That accountability travels upward as well as downward. When justice walks tall, the people do too. This moment can be Ghana's turning point, a chance to show the continent and the world that the fight for sovereignty is not a throwback to history. It's the heartbeat of the present. We've seen what silence brings. Now let's see what fire can do, when it's harnessed not for destruction, but for rebirth. This is not just about rivers turned brown or forests stripped bare. It's not even just about gold. This is about a continent being tested. Again. Tested not by armies or chains, but by something far more dangerous. Neglect dressed as trade, and silence mistaken for peace. Ghana's struggle is not isolated. It is symbolic. It stands as a mirror, held up to every African nation that still wonders whether it's too early to stand firm, or too risky to speak out. But here's the truth. If we wait any longer, there may be nothing left to protect. More than 60% of Ghana's water is now unsafe to drink. Children are bleeding from lungs they never polluted. Farmers walk acres of poisoned land, praying for a harvest that may never return. And above all this, bulldozers still hum in the distance, louder than the law. So we return to the beginning. This is not just Ghana's fight. It's Africa's future. And it's the unfinished mission of every ancestor whose bones rest beneath our soil. They tilled this land, not for it to be sold. They marched, not for their rivers to be bought. They believed, so that we would never again bow quietly when our homes are pillaged, even by those who smile at our gates. If Africa is rising on its own terms, what's our role in this story? What does standing up look like? In your voice, in your vote, in your vigilance. We want to hear you. Not just for algorithms, for accountability. Should Ghana revoke foreign mining licenses completely, even at the cost of diplomatic ties? Do you believe the same law should apply to everyone, regardless of passport? What does economic independence mean when the mines are manned by outsiders? How should Ghana respond to China's growing influence? Cooperate, confront, or reclaim? What lessons can other nations, Nigeria, Congo, Sierra Leone, take from Ghana's path? And yes, tell us where you're watching from. Because this isn't just a Ghanaian conversation, it's a global black reckoning. If you're in the diaspora, if your roots trace back to rivers now running red, this story is part of your inheritance too. And if this story moves something in your chest, don't scroll past. Like, share, speak, subscribe, not for the video, but for the vision, because they hid our history long enough. Now, it's time we speak our future out loud. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next story, the kind they still don't want you to hear. And remember, whether you're in Harlem or Kumasi, Chicago or Accra, this is our fight, our soil, and our tomorrow.